Go ahead and call the May 9th regular meeting of Post Falls Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Will you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. I absolutely deeply appreciate that you all exercise your rights as Post Falls citizens to come in and speak. One thing I did want to make sure and touch base in regards to some of our public hearings this evening is that tonight's hearing, particularly the first item, is all about zoning. We're talking about zoning, and that item will, regardless, be passed on to City Council for City Council's final decision. So I wanted to preface and make sure that everyone knew, if you want to write it in your calendar, June 19th would actually be the date that would be heard by City Council. But I wanted to preface that. Also wanted to remind anyone that if you choose to speak tonight regarding any of the public hearings, so make sure and sign up, turn the paperwork in, and make sure and mark whether yes you would like to speak or no you would not, so we can enter it in the record. At that time you'll come forward. You'll be allowed to speak. Make sure you state your name and address. But again, I thank you all for coming and joining us this evening. So, that being said, we'll start with roll call.
Hamby,
Here.
Latham,
Here.
Kimball,
Present.
Davis.
Here. Any amendments to the agenda this evening?
No, there is not.
No amendments to the agenda. We have ceremonies, appointments, announcements, and presentation. Mr. Manley, I believe you have one.
Yes, I would like to welcome Lindsay King. She's right here. I don't know if you want to stand up. She's the new addition to the planning department. She's a planner one, so it's been great to have her, and we look forward to continue providing a great level of service, and she'll help us do that for Post Falls.
Perfect. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Rob Palus, I believe you have something as well.
Good evening, Chairman Davis, members of the Commission. Back last fall, the Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization passed the State Highway 41 Corridor Master Plan Update. Since that time, we've had a few developments come through here that you've looked at. There's been some discussion in the public as to what is or is not going to be happening along Highway 41. This evening, I have Lee Bernardi. He is a staff engineer from the Idaho Transportation Department, and he's managing a project for the widening of Highway 41, and he wants to talk with you a little bit about what's going on in a pending public meeting. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Bernardi now.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, as Rob said, I'm Lee Bernardi. I'm with the Idaho Transportation Department, and when I first pulled in here, I saw everybody coming in. I thought, wow, I must be popular, but it turns out I'm not really the reason most of you are here tonight, so I'm going to make this short. Just kind of wanted to update you on the the State Highway 41 corridor. The Kootenai, as you know, Rob also said, the master plan for the corridor has been updated and approved, and it is available on KMPO's website. If anybody wants to go out there and take a look at it. Our goal right now, we're looking at safety, mobility, and economic opportunity with the amount of growth that's being experienced here in Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene area. I heard on the news the other day that this is the 11th fastest growing area in the country. Is right here in our North Idaho, so that's kind of cool. But anyway, what we're looking at doing is we're going to take the current SH41 and expand it to 4 lanes, divided highway all the way from this project will actually be constructed in 3 stages, but from Mullen Avenue all the way up to Bokel Road, close to Rathdrum. And excuse me, we're going to include a multi-use pedestrian bike path. The lanes will have 4 lanes divided, and we're going to limit access to try to improve and keep the traffic flowing, keep the congestion down all the way through the corridor. So we originally were planning to start the first phase, which is Mullen Avenue up to Prairie Avenue in 2019. We run into some right-of-way purchasing issues. We had to postpone to 2020. 2019 was a little bit of an ambitious schedule anyway, so you'll see construction out there actually starting in 2020. We are going to have a public meeting. We're going to have options for people to view and take comments. The public meeting is scheduled for May 18th. It's a Thursday at the Post Falls Police Department from 4 to 7 p.m. So anyone that's interested and wants to see what we're looking at through there, we've got a couple of different options. First of all, we're going to only allow the major intersections as through streets and left turns onto the highway. Those would be at the half mile. So Mullen Avenue, 16th, Pole Line, Hope Avenue, and Prairie. North of Prairie, we're going to have 1 mile controlled intersections. And at this point, we're looking at possibly signals at these intersections or roundabouts. But we also have a third option, which you guys can come and take a look at. We've got some satellite imagery. We've hired HDR consulting engineers to help us out with the design. But the third option would be a mid-block U-turn. So anyway, we invite everybody down there to take a look at what we got and comment, and we'd love to see you. That's about all I had, unless anybody has any questions. Wants me to get the heck out of here so I can move on. All right. Well, thank you.
Already appreciate the time. Thank you very much. Commissioners, any declaration of conflict this evening?
None.
None?
None for me.
No.
Okay. Consent calendar. That is the meeting minutes from April 11th and also the findings of Northern Plains second edition.
I wasn't here. Ray,
Motion?
it's up to you.
I guess I wasn't really here either, but I'll move to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Call for a vote.
Latham,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes?
Hampe,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes. So moved. Moves us to the next item this evening, citizen issues. Citizen issues are on the agenda and reserved for citizens wishing to address the commission on an issue that is, again, not on the agenda this evening. Comments on that issue or plan that might be planned for future meetings should be held for that meeting. Do we have any citizen issues other than the task at hand? All right. No unfinished or old business? Correct? That takes us into the meat of this evening, and that is public hearing number 1. So we will go ahead and open the first public hearing, Annexation File -A-17-03. Mr. Manley to present.
Good evening, Chairman Davis and members of the commission. So yes, the BOSETH annexation, case file A-17-03. The property owners on this one is Douglas BOSETH, Alston Durant, and Dell Zook. The applicant's rep is Tri-State Consulting Engineers and is present this evening. The requested action is to review the requested single-family R1 zoning designation and make a recommendation of approval for the requested zone to City Council. In looking at the project location, you see this here with the hash mark here, the arrow pointing towards it, and then you have Pole Line Avenue and Chase Road. So it's a bit to the north of there. It's directly southwest of the intersection of Grange and Chase. You can see the zoning at this location. What you see in the lighter yellow, that's your R1S, your larger lot suburban zone, and then you have the R1. The difference is the R1S is intended for 1 acre lots, with the R1 being for up to 5 units per acre. You see some purple there, that's some smart code zone. The lighter purple is for a typical single-family development type zone, and then the darker purple is more for like a medium density type zone. A little bit off to the east, you see the brown, that's an RMHP, a residential mobile home park zone. And then you have some R2 zoning just to the south of there. And looking at the future land use map, you see how this area here is all designated as residential. So the proposed location would be consistent with the future land use map. The project size is about 20.94 acres. The current land use is vacant. There's one single family residence that would be at this location here. So that's where the single family is, the rest being vacant. The proposed zoning, as stated in the intro, is single family residential. The water provider is East Green Acres Irrigation District, with sewer being provided by the City of Post Falls. In general, the review was found consistent with the policies found within the comprehensive plan. As stated, the future land use map, it's also within the City of Post Falls area city impact. It's contiguous with city limits, and the R1 zoning is consistent with the surrounding areas as designated. So looking at annexation policies within the comprehensive plan, policy 3, land to be annexed should enable completion of the continuation of the pedestrian network that connects neighborhoods to amenities and activity centers throughout the community. So I'm going to try to connect this to the request. It's a zoning request. We're not at this time considering the annexation. It's what the R1 zone, is it appropriate for this area? So, but with that, you do get some improvements with development of the pedestrian connections. So currently we have what you see in the purple and the green, that subdivision is currently being developed. The blue is the road extension that's currently being installed. That is Genesec Loop to connect with Staples Avenue. So the plan is to connect the yellow further to the north and intersect Grange. And so no longer would Staples be in this close proximity to Grange Avenue. The engineering division is going to speak more on that aspect of it going forward. What I'm looking at here is from a pedestrian connectivity, that these improvements will improve access of neighborhoods through the community as well as this area. Similarly, when you look at zoning, as stated, this is zoned R1 to the south. These lots are 0.2 acre lots, so that would equate to about 5 units per acre. So the lots to the south of Staples will be pretty similar to the ones to the north. Similarly, we have an annexation that's recently been approved along Chase Road here, which was approved as R1. Also, everything to the east is also R1. I'll go back to, once again, you can kind of see how that fits into the area right here with the R1S to the west. But these pedestrian improvements, so what you're looking at here is an R1 type pedestrian corridor where you see the sidewalks that are improved along Grange Avenue. It's just to the east side of Chase Road. On the north side here, this is what is currently been installed with the Whiskey Flat subdivision. What you see here is the R1S pedestrian improvements. They both work for connecting pedestrians to and through the community. Here you see that this area has seen some development around this county pocket in this area here, and the lack of improvements long-term would prove to be detrimental. Having a road section that doesn't have sidewalks or a way for people to get off the main corridors as we increase the housing units to the north and to the west and around the community, Chase Road will have more and more traffic on it. So having people out on the road would be a preferred option. So in the other policy points is the timing of annexation should be coordinated with opportunities for orderly development or extensions of public systems. That policies addressed in the comprehensive plan and a recommendation addressed by other master plans such as the water, sewer, and transportation, parks, and emergency services should guide annexation decisions. So in the review of this proposal, there wasn't any conflict for these other master plans with this proposal. Service needs can also be, when service needs can be properly addressed, priority should be given in annexing infill pockets that are surrounded by incorporated city, lands that have utility infrastructure readily available, and areas that support a development pattern of increased intensity near the urban center. So this is, as you see here, completely surrounded. What you see in the green there, that's county. That's the county zoning designation. But this is a infill pocket. So the annexation speaks that those should be a priority. Reason being is, as you, with annexation pockets such as this, you have generally utility services nearby. You're closer to other services, police, fire, and other transit type services that may be city parks, that when you annex externally from the city, you potentially complicate the matters because you detract from the possibilities from these being in, seeing development. The reverse happens too. As development occurs in infill areas, it's more likely that you'll defer some of those annexations in the external, which has then a complicated element to the services, extending utilities, and other costs. So there's real good benefit at getting infill areas as a priority. Also, in looking at this, I kind of provided a red line. That on the east side of this red line, there's kind of a development pattern that's kind of established. You see right here in this, where I have that in a blue circle, with a proposed area as R1. If that was annexed as, it would be consistent with most of what's to the south of there. There is a blip of R1S to the north. Then you have some R1S on the north side of Fisher, but those are third-acre lots, very similar to an R1 type development. How that got approved was through a PUD, and they provided some open space, and with the development of the roads and the open space, ended up creating 1/3-acre lots. To the west, you also have what you see here in this hash. It's a little unclear on this, but it kind of comes on this muddy yellow color. But at that location, those are half-acre lots or less predominantly, zoned R1S. And then when you look at the Black Stallion Ranch, those are similarly half-acre lots or less. And then when you look at the R1S as a whole, about 50% of that subdivision, oh, sorry, misspoke, 50% of that zone is a half-acre or less, has been developed. The only exception to that is the meadows. The meadows did retain that 1-acre minimum as the zoning district calls out. And looking at kind of zoning principle and how it transitions from the county areas to your urban cores and your urban centers. So you go from your natural zones, you know, up in the hills with the open country with, you know, where Idaho Department of Lands is at and stuff like that, to more of your natural zones. This is your farming areas. I would say here in this area would be like 5 acres or greater would be more of your natural zone. Some could question that 5-acre being the delineation, but I would think it'd be fitting for what is currently out there. Then once you get into the city of Post Falls, you have more of your suburban zones. And the suburban zones would be anywhere between 1-acre lots to your smaller single-family homes. And so they would transition from the external part of the community. As you get to the urban core, you'd see your single-family form getting denser and denser as you get closer to your centers. So, I mean, if someone was to propose something to the right, like that would be fitting in the urban center zone, we would say that the proposal would not be consistent for the area. But in R1, next to an R1S, they're right next to each other in the zoning classifications, and they're also both within the suburban zone. So they would be, that's why we consider it consistent. Plus, they both encourage, as you've seen in the diagrams, walkable neighborhoods with single-family homes. Here you can see that highlighted in yellow, that's the proposed annexation area. You can see how this whole area, and once again you can see that infill pocket, is surrounded by the city of Post Falls. And it's not adjacent to the urban center, but it is fairly close to the urban centers. It's depending on your mobility levels, it's fairly walkable, and you can easily bike to it as well. And looking at the residential policies, most ordinary activities should occur within a walking distance to most residences, allowing a measure of independence for those who drive and those who do not. And there should be a range of housing price levels through the community. So in looking at, and now this area is highlighted in blue, but to the west you have these are city maintained parks, they're city parks. And you can see these smaller half-acre lots as mentioned earlier, the 1 acre lots, and then you can see the various changes in lot sizes in this area. So typically in single family development you do see various price ranges, and in this area you would see various rates of affordability as well, depending on the housing product and lot sizing. So this would conclude planning's part of this at this point in time. I will conclude it, but this time because we're going to deal with some engineering related, I'm going to invite Rob Palus up to kind of speak towards the engineering related items. And then we'll both be present in conclusion for additional questions.
Thanks, Sean.
Commissioner Davis, members of the commission, Robert Paulus, Assistant City Engineer. In looking at this proposed annexation and the requested zoning, we did take a look at what would be the impacts if it was developed at the requested zoning to the transportation system. What that means is we usually take a look and say, with the zoning requests they have in our transportation master plan, did we utilize an equivalent or higher growth rate in the model? In this case, we did have an R1 type designation for this general area for land uses. We then take that and look at our model and say, what are the projected impacts and capital improvement plans that are needed in that area over the next 5, 10, and 20 years. Let's see. In this area here, this is a image from our functional classification map, which just identifies how big the roads are supposed to be and how much traffic is going to be on them. Green being arterial roadways that handle between 6,000 to 15,000 trips per day. This proposed project is next to Chase Road, which is identified as an arterial roadway. Currently, it has between 2,000 to 3,000 trips per day traveling on it, well below what the arterial standard is. In fact, by the time we get to 2035, the only improvements that are identified in the general area is for a potential roundabout or traffic signal down around Pole Line and Chase intersection. And then also there is identified in the nearer term, within the next 10 years, for a roundabout to be at Prairie Avenue and Chase Road. That is currently in design and will be constructed by the Post Falls Highway District within the next few years. Prairie Avenue is a principal arterial in the area that is going to continue to grow and be a main thoroughfare in the area. As this area develops in R1 if it was to develop under R1 single family, we would anticipate that most of that traffic is going to utilize Chase Road and disperse either up to Prairie Avenue, Pole Line Avenue, or further south to Celtice, and will have little impact on the adjoining residential streets. This project being only about 20 acres in size, from our transportation model standpoint, is considered to be background growth. It's not anticipated to have a large enough impact to warrant an additional study. Most times, even with an additional study, we won't look at that with the zoning, and we'll wait until a actual proposed subdivision comes in, because we'll have a better idea on where they're looking at connecting to our system. That's where John had mentioned before. We anticipate this area, and a lot of it has to do with historical growth. When the Meadows subdivision came in, Grange Avenue was extended as far east as it could. There was then issues with adjoining property owners that it could not get out and intersect with Chase Road. Our city design standards call for trying to keep over 300-foot road separations on an arterial roadway. Right now, Staples Road intersects Chase Road only 150 feet to 175 feet, depending where you measure the roads on the aerial, from Grange. If it was kept in this configuration, from other studies that have been done, roads that get that close together have a higher incidence rate of collisions, usually T-bone accidents, as people are making left turns out and get hit and not anticipating what the through drivers are doing. That's interesting. A couple of my pieces missed from the slide. But the intersection of Chase and Grange is also close to a couple of railroad crossings. You have on the top here is showing the Chase crossing of the UP Railroad. That is an existing crossing that has full gates and lights. We took a look at the accident history at that location in the past 6 years from the state of Idaho records, which includes records from the Post Falls Police Department, Kootenai County Sheriffs, and the state police. There have been no collisions at that intersection for the past 6 years. The lower image is a picture of the Grange Avenue crossing of the same UP line. This is about 1,000 feet east of the proposed annexation. That location is only stop controlled at this time. It has had one collision in the past 6 years. That intersection is currently scheduled for improvements this year. The Idaho Transportation Department has been working on plans which are now with the Union Pacific Railroad and are approved for budgetary expenses to build improvements of gates, lights, and widening the intersection as well. The City of Post Falls does have some money from our capital improvement plan, which would go into some of the curb and gutter work, and then some of the work on the north side of that intersection would be done by the adjoining development in the near future. The next railroad crossing, which is right next to this, which is the Guy Road crossing of the same line, would be removed when they put this crossing in place, which improves safety in the general area. I don't have a picture of it, but there has been a lot of discussion about not too far from here, the Spokane Street crossing of the same rail line. That rail line is also scheduled for gates and arms to be installed this year as part of the same project with the UP Railroad. Any questions regarding transportation issues?
I do, Rob, one quick one. Will you go back to your capacity? Based on your opinion, do you think that the Grange Avenue west of Chase as a local street will have capacity based on the zoning, proposed zoning?
I took a look at the last transportation count we did in that area, which was 2014, and that's the last time we did any counts in the city at all, so that is the most recent information we had. There hasn't been a lot of growth in that area, so I think the numbers should still be good internal to the subdivision. At the intersection of Grange Avenue and, I'm going to forget the name of the intersection right now, but Grange and Howell was the intersection. It had right at about 700 vehicle trips per day, and that was over a 3-day period averaged out. I would anticipate that with this annexation coming in, having a connection point in future development to Chase Road, you would see some increases in traffic along Grange Avenue, but not significantly. Part of the reasons for that are you have stop-controlled Grange at Howell, and that Prairie Avenue McGuire Road and Chase Road offer much quicker modes of transit north-south as well as east-west.
Okay, so it'd be safe to say that with development at R1 Grange Avenue, a new extension of Grange Avenue would have capacity.
That is correct. And
Okay.
I'd like to just clarify a little bit. Our local capacity shows between 0 to 2,500 trips per day. A lot of people will start getting uncomfortable once you start getting above 1,000 trips per day. I think it's rather unlikely that since we're down in 700 to 750 trips per day now, it's unlikely that we're going to get up to, or if we do, much higher than 1,000 trips per day on Grange Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Rob, just clarification real quick. So we're looking at 2017 for both Grange and Spokane,
That is correct.
lights and gates.
Lights and gates.
Okay.
So where you're at, we've been told they're going to be built this year. We're waiting for the date of construction from the UP Railroads right now so that we can coordinate some additional work that we need to do. But we've been told that it's going to be done this year. So if you take a look at the annexation process, you had the Chase Grange annexation before you recently, which is the piece immediately to the north. If they were to come forward with a subdivision application in the very near future and to process that through, it is more than likely that unless something happens from a funding standpoint, which we're not aware of, that those gates and arms would be in place prior to any subdivision activity being completed and any new homes going in on that Chase and Grange annexation that just got approved last month by City Council.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
So I did get a question as I was parted. Who am I? I apologize for not introducing that at the start. John Manley, Planning Manager at the City of Post Falls, so apologize for that.
We were asking up here who you were too. So.
So in regards to the water reclamation facilities, sanitary sewer is available for this project. The City of Post Falls has capacity to serve it with the requested zoning, but with that there's no guarantee for future service. It's all time dependent on when development occurs and what the capacity is at that time. For domestic water, that is provided by the East Green Acres Irrigation District. Kootenai County Fire did review it and they approve as presented. And at this time, I would stand for any questions you have that was in the staff report, or Rob could come up and answer any other additional questions you may have of staff at this point.
I don't have any.
Planning, engineering, either one?
No.
No. Right. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Applicant, make sure and state your name, address, please.
I will do that, sir. Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Steve Circle. I'm with Tri-State Consulting Engineers, and I'm here on behalf of my clients, Mr. Mark Robertson and Mr. Matt Afana. We've been working on this property for a little bit, and we're here, of course, for your, hopefully, recommendation for annexation into the city. We want to be a part of the city. After several meetings with city staff and engineering, we feel that staff's done a great job, and R1 seems to be a good fit for this property. If you recall, a couple months ago, I was here for the property to the north of us, and it made sense for that as well. We have read through the staff report. Obviously, the presentation from John and Mr. Palus was exceptional, and we don't have any opposition or any objections to any of the findings that are in that, and we certainly would love to come with into the city to do so. As mentioned before, this is infill, and it was infill, and even the black border that's shown up there is infill, and we're glad to be a part of potentially filling that. And city-like densities is what we're asking for, and what means that, obviously, as already stated, infrastructure is available and adequate. We've already met with the East Green Acres Irrigation District. They're going to serve the property as stated by John's presentation. So with that, I would ask for any questions you might have of me, or even my clients, if you have any questions from them. We're just here to ask for a color on the map and become a part of the city.
Questions for applicant? Nope.
How dense, what would the density be, or what are you proposing, or what do you have in mind for as far as lot size?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. As you can see, it's kind of an odd-shaped piece of property. We were fortunate to be able to obtain both pieces instead of just the one. We originally had just the 10 acres, and then we had negotiated with the neighbor to the west and came up with an agreement to come and bring more into the table, so we wouldn't have just the remaining 10 acres sitting out there still in infill. My client has a desire for 55 and older. That may be something that we're working on, but we don't necessarily have the density dialed in yet, but we're working on concepts. We want to make it and be responsible to the land. We want to be responsible of our neighbors. It means that we're R1 to the south, east, and north on the corner there. That seems to be logical. So density-wise, we probably won't be right at the maximum, because just based on the size and the geometry of the land. Typically, when you can get to that maximum density, it's a box. It's old government lots, square box. You can dice it up. But in this case, we're not quite all the way there. But we're definitely more dense than R1S. But so I feel it's gonna be a mixture of lots, varying in sizes, and so on.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, public testimony. Let's start off with public testimony in favor. We have two in favor, both that wish not to speak. Matt Robertson says, with rapid growth the city is experiencing, there's a need for further housing developments. R1 would help address this issue. Key for the way. And then we have Matt, is it Afrin? If I butcher the name, I apologize. Access to the city parks and important. These type of developments bring city improvement, all positive. So neither wish to speak. Do we have any that are neutral? None neutral. I would say that there were two in our package that we noticed that were neutral. Those against? Jim and Patty Williams opposed the high density. In addition, without consideration of traffic, railroad crossings, and et cetera. Do not wish to speak. Susan Gained does not wish to speak. I'm in opposition to the annexation because of traffic. Feel it should be half-acre to 1 acre lots. We've got Robert Wilhelm, who does wish to speak. So Robert, if you'll come up. State your name and address. You have 4 minutes.
Hello, I'm Bobby Wilhelm, and I live at 923 West Grange. And to finish up on your question that you had to that gentleman right here, here is what I believe to be the proposed lot size, which is 6,700, an average of 6,700 square feet. Okay, which I don't think he answered that question, so I thought I would do that. Okay, I'm at ground zero for this proposed annexation, where the roads will come out. They'll go right there to Grange, and if you look at right about here is where I'm at. So with that proposal right there, they want to put 98 homes on 20 acres. Okay, with the Jim Guy annexation, which is right behind my house, is 5 acres. They want to put 20 homes on that. The BOSETH, that's 98. Whiskey Flats has about 57 that's supposed to go in. Copper Basin, which is right underneath the railroad tracks, I believe is about 25. If you add up all that, that's 200 homes that are going to hit right underneath, not one railroad track, but 2 railroad tracks. When the guy mentioned that there had been no wrecks or anything for 6 years at the railroad tracks at one of the spots, whatever. The one right down from it, a girl got killed a couple months ago. Since this all started, the other day a kid tried to outrun a train, and then a train derailed. So there has been a lot of traffic problems with the trains. With that 200 homes, you also have 170 homes with the meadows. You'll have 250 homes with prairie meadows that can use that Grange when it opens up right there, right in this area. So that is 620 more homes that will be available to that. I heard the traffic guys say that the 700 cars per whatever at Howell and Grange, it wouldn't be significant. I believe with 620 more homes having access to that intersection that is right at the base of a railroad tracks, there'll be significant traffic on that road. That road will be turned into what's called a minor arterial, what Chase is now. So I believe that was incorrect when he stated that. So it'll turn Grange into a minor arterial, and it wasn't designed for that. Grange was designed just for basic homes, not a major traffic thoroughway. This will cause a traffic nightmare down there at Grange and Chase with everything hitting right there. I live right there. I see it. When that train is there, the traffic is already backed up to Grange. So when you put this 200 additional homes there, we're not just talking the BOSETH. That's all they're talking there. There's 200 homes going in that area right now, okay? When you put all that right there, and it's already backed up to Grange, where are all these people going to go? So what they're going to do is they're going to start backing up, trying to make U's, try to chase, run, and beat the train up at the Grange crossing until the arms get there and stuff, or they'll still try to run up there and beat it. But there is going to be a nightmare of congestion down there. So if it's already backed up to that point, where do they go? Okay, so they're going to try to turn on Grange, and it's going to get all blocked up in there, and it's going to get congested. Okay. Okay, additionally, all these 200 homes, I spoke about it, there's 2 railroad tracks there that you need to deal with. And I put on Facebook the other day on Old School North Idaho, all the people have been killed by the railroad tracks. I've lived here all my life, 4th generation, and I could name 40 people with those train tracks that have been killed. So we have that to deal with. With the comprehensive plan, there's also a master traffic plan. At 9.4 of the master traffic plan, it calls for a traffic impact study. And I believe in this situation here, considering we are not just opening up a road, we're at the bottom of railroad tracks, it's not just the BOSETH annexation, there's 200 homes coming in here. I did hear the guy from Post Falls talk about a general traffic thing, what he has looked at. That is not a traffic impact study. So if you're going to follow the Post Falls Comprehensive Plan, at 9.4 of the Traffic Master Plan, this project here needs to have a traffic impact study. I asked that the zoning...
Your 4 minutes are up, so go ahead and wrap up, please.
Okay. I asked that the zoning on this, the R1, be delayed until a traffic impact study can be done.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. One quick note, I know that we do have several people that wish to speak tonight. If someone is, for the sake of respect of everyone's time, if someone has covered everything that you wish to cover, would ask to be respectful of the time. That being said, Eric Thomas is in opposition and does wish to speak, so you have 4 minutes. Come on up.
My name is Eric Thompson. I live at 2003 Polo Green in the Meadows subdivision, Post Falls. My issue is more of a general issue than what we've covered so far, if you will, having to do with developmental diversity. And I make that term a little bit comparative to biodiversity in the biological world, where you have islands of habitat or whatever, which the scientists say are important to critters, the view shed, the health of people that want to be able to see nature next to them in a developmental world. Developmental density, I've heard a couple of gentlemen come up, and particularly the one from Tri-State, that used this very same map that you see that just said, well, this 20 acres is going to be infill, 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 referring to the green shaded areas around with the black outline just to the north and just to the east of the subject parcel. So infill, infill, infill. And it seems to me that, I guess it's a question to the Planning Council Commission as to, are you considering a developmental diversity long-range plan for this valley? Because I, like so many other people, wherever I live in a suburban environment, which I do live in, I chose the Rathdrum Prairie, and specifically Post Falls, because of the unique diversity that we have with the rural suburban interface. Forget about the city. Just where people live, the rural suburban interface. And that's a cool thing. It's really a neat thing to be able to see, view sheds, long-range view sheds, to be able to have a lot of wildlife interacting with intense development, things like that. So that's why I moved here, and I guess my question to you is, are your long-range developmental plans thinking about developmental diversity? I'm not necessarily against, an infill annexation donut like this being tucked in, but where we live in the Meadows, the subdivision directly to our north, Meadow Ridge, was once upon a time 2 5-acre parcels. And even though it's an R1S zone, it still is an exterior. It's not a donut. It's not an annexed infill. And it got subdivided. So the annexation bubble is moving outward towards its edges, and it's sucking up the infills that we've had described here tonight. And that worries me. So I would ask you to consider, whether you want to keep going with infill, 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 and also moving out, and more importantly, this long-range strategy for the valley, for the prairie, from the demands on our aquifer to infrastructure, which obviously is a point priority for your commission, things like that. But I've often wondered why, in your place, whether you are considering an annexation for a development in an R1 zone, why isn't there a proposed developmental plan that is submitted as part of the annexation application? I've often wondered this because the young lady asked, well, what's your general plan for the density? And there was maybe a very honest answer given by the gentleman from Tri-State. But the point is that it could end up to be exactly what he described, and it could end up to be, one house every 6,700 square feet and 96 homes, as the previous speaker portrayed on that once upon a time planned approval map.
Mr. Thompson, you're 4 minutes. Go ahead and wrap up.
So I guess that's my point is I would like to have you look at the context of the valley, biodiversity, and more importantly, this particular question and issue that's at hand tonight, developmental and diversity too. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Nancy Thompson. It's already been, okay, thank you very much. Also in opposition wishing to speak, Dennis Quinn. Dennis, state your name, address. You have 4 minutes, sir.
My name is Dennis Quinn. I'm at 1203 West Grange. After review of the We Value Post-Fall Strategic Plan of 2013 to 2017 and the Post-Falls Comprehensive Plan of 2003, I'm speaking in opposition to the BOSETH annexation. The aforementioned plans were created with citizen input and careful study by an advisory committee with members representing many facets of services and interests in Post Falls. I would like to read a few highlights from these plans. The We Value Post Falls Strategic Plan 2013 to 2017 states the following. Under values, accountability, quote, Post Falls is dedicated to promoting fiscal responsibility, managed growth, responsive community services, and an open and fair government. Under goals, number 2, well-planned and livable community. Objective 1, implementation strategies and policies. Quote, continue coordinated future land use planning efforts with other departments and agencies. The Post Falls Comprehensive Plan of 2003 states the following. Under 4.0, future land use policies, overall policies, number 6 states, when land is annexed into the city, the appropriate zoning designations shall be applied after consideration of the future land use map. Future roadway classification maps surrounding land uses and the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. This includes the coordinated efforts with other departments and agencies to include the school district. As it stands in the planning and zoning long agenda posted online in the BOSETH annexation narrative, Exhibit A2, Schools, page 4. Quote, the Post Falls High School and Prairie View Elementary School on Pole Line Road are less than a mile from the property, unquote. This information included in the BOSETH annexation narrative is false and indicates that the developer either is unaware of the actual location of his annexation request or is so hastily churning out requests that he failed to review a reused template for errors. Further, it concerns me as a citizen that input from the school district is completely absent from the notes in regard to this request and lacking from multiple other development requests approved over the past several years by this commission. According to the We Value Post Fall Strategic Plan, our city's values include leadership that models integrity and implements community goals and encourages citizen involvement. It is in this spirit that we are here this evening. The Planning Commission is respectfully asked to follow the City of Post Falls strategic plan before rubber stamping the BOSETH annexation. That was the end of my presentation, but I did want to speak about the planning manager's presentation, and I think there's a discrepancy or a mistake he made when he was addressing Prairie Meadows, which is adjacent to the Meadows. And he stated the lots were ½ acre or less. And in fact, I believe they're ½ acre to 1 acre, which is more in line with what the Meadows is. And I thank you for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Dennis. Patty Walker.
Good evening. I am Patty Walker, and I live at 1546 West Polo Green in the Meadows. I, too, after reviewing the We Value Post Fall Strategic Plan, I am speaking in opposition to the BOSETH annexation. In the strategic plan, it is stated that, quote, Post Falls is an environmentally aware community that preserves, conserves, and appreciates its distinctive open spaces. Goal number 2, well-planned and livable communities objective 4, preserves the city's unique resources through environmental stewardship states, quote, work with others to protect open space and environmental resources. Under implementation strategies and policies, it says, quote, work with others, entitles to attain a continuous open space buffer across the prairie. The BOSETH annexation appears to be dynamically opposed to this objective. Further, in the Post Falls Comprehensive Plan, Section 5, Natural Resources, Parks, Green Spaces, under policy states for natural resources, it reads, quote, provide development standards that protect and enhance the existing natural systems, protect natural resources, and promote green spaces. I see no evidence of adherence to this policy as posted in the plan. In the same comprehensive plan, under item 5.0, natural resources, number 5, reads, quote, promote guidelines that will protect wildlife habitats by maintaining existence of trees and vegetative cover and or revegetate disturbed areas. Given the dwindling population of pheasants and quail in the direct vicinity of the proposed annexation, I am concerned that the habitat protection is not being addressed at all. According to citizens' input for the comprehensive plan, quote, Post Falls residents consider parks, green spaces, trails, recreation to be a significant factor contributing to the overall quality of our life within this wonderful city. The BOSETH annexation addresses none of these, and in fact, reduces quality of life through the removal of yet another agricultural buffer zone. I urge the Commission to deny this annexation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Also in opposition, wishing to speak is Larry Castor. Larry.
Chairman Davis, Commissioners, my name is Larry Castor. I live at 1896 West Grange Avenue. I'm a member of the Meadows HOA, and I'm currently serving on the board of the Meadows HOA. I have some deep concerns about how this annexation is going to affect the traffic along Grange Avenue and the subdivision in general. And I got to tell you, a lot of my neighbors are expressing their concerns to me as well. The Meadows subdivision was apparently approved by the Post Falls Zoning Commission back in 2002. If I draw your attention to the map on the board there, you can see Grange coming along this area. It's a nice, gentle curving road that goes east and west in our subdivision. And I particularly want to point out that the subdivision was designed with houses on either side of Grange that are have their driveways and facing straight onto Grange. In other words, they're entering and exiting onto Grange. It's got a posted speed limit of 25 miles an hour. It's got one set of stop signs at the Grange Howell intersection. This is a residential street. This is a residential neighborhood. It's not a traffic connector in any sense of the word. But with this annexation, my concern is that suddenly the traffic is going to increase dramatically in this area. Now, I heard Rob talk about traffic a little bit, but I kind of disagree from what I can see on what's going to happen when this annexation goes in, along with the other building that's going on in the area. Bobby already mentioned about 200 homes are going to suddenly appear and be using that area all down by the Grange Chase intersection. When that starts to happen, 200 homes, 2 cars per home, 2, 4, 6 car trips per car per day. We're looking at over 1,000 car trips per day out of just that 200 homes being put into that area. Those vehicles that go towards Spokane, that go west, are most likely to take Grange to go across and hit McGuire and go on to Spokane that direction. They're not going to go up Chase, over Fisher, and back down again. They're going to take the shorter route and come right through our neighborhood. I think that's going to be a real problem. We already have traffic problems on Grange. A lot of the neighbors are complaining to me about the number of trucks and the speed of the trucks that are going through our subdivision. 25 miles an hour is not being heeded. If we start increasing that by another 500, 600 car trips a day, we're going to have increased problems on our neighborhood. And again, it's a residential neighborhood. It's not a traffic connector. In addition, to the south of the Meadows area is the Prairie Meadows area. And if I can kind of draw a quick circle with this, I'm not very good at this left-handed. But this whole area here is the Prairie Meadows area. They have about 180 homes there. Now currently, when those people in that subdivision want to go towards Post Falls to head east, they're most likely to go up Howell, that's up through the center of our subdivision, up this way, connect to Fisher, and turn right and go east on Fisher. Howell doesn't have any stop signs as it goes through our subdivision. Howell doesn't have any houses facing that street, doesn't have the driveway load on it. Howell, in fact, was designed to take the subdivision, Prairie Meadows subdivision, to take that traffic and exit it out of the subdivision and onto a more major road, such as Fisher. But as Grange goes through to Chase, we're going to find that those people are going to start taking Grange, turning right and going into Post Falls that direction. So we're going to increase the traffic on Grange again by another, 300, 500 car trips a day. By the same token, Fisher, going east and west at the top of our subdivision, it's got subdivisions on either side of it. The Meadows on one side, I don't remember the name of the subdivision on the north side of it, but those subdivisions are designed not to directly have homes going on to Fisher. They come on to Fisher through feeder routes because Fisher is designed as a more arterial route.
You should wrap things up.
Okay. So what we have is a lot of traffic that we're concerned about, so I'm definitely opposed to it until we do a full traffic study. I don't believe the Planning Commission has done a full, complete traffic study on how that's going to be done. In addition, this particular area is it's a little triangular area. It's bordered on 2 out of the 3 sides by R1S. I think it needs to stay as an R1S. That'll help the continuity and integrity of our subdivision. We don't need to go with another R1. Thank you very much.
Mr. Castor, thank you very much. Okay, Charles Sanders. Saunders? I was close. I apologize. Again, name, address, and please keep your comments to 4 minutes.
Or we can do less than that. Thank you for hearing us tonight. My name is Chuck Saunders. I live at 1216 West Grange. Everybody's touching on a lot of the concerns that we all have, particularly the fact that you're taking a neighborhood street and trying to make that a through street into Chase. We have a lot of small children there, and they will no longer be able just to kind of do their bike thing if there's a lot of traffic. My bigger concern, however, is really what we're going to do with Chase itself. Regardless of how you want to dress it up, Chase is an old 2-lane country road. It doesn't have a turn lane that could accommodate all of this new traffic. So anybody trying to turn into a development of 98 houses, plus the Meadows, is going to have a problem. It's going to have a problem primarily because as you come over the rise on the railroad tracks, you can't see what's below you. So if you have cars backed up trying to make a left-hand turn on Grange, you're going to have a problem. So my thought would be that you wouldn't want to do a significant increase in housing in a high-density environment until you at least have a turn lane on Chase that can accommodate the traffic, regardless of what the engineer says. It's going to be a problem.
and you guys are going to have to live with it. Thank you very much. That's all I got to say.
All right, Mr. Saunders, thank you. Next up, in opposition, wishing to speak, Kathleen Quinn.
Commissioners. My name's Kathleen Quinn. I live at 1203 West Grange Avenue in Post Falls, near the new annexation proposal that's there. I wanted to talk about a few things. First of all, from where I came from. The city that I came from has 62,000 people, censused in 2010. And so by now, at this time, 4 years later, it's quite a bit more, I'm sure. I understand that growth is important. We're from a forward generation, so it's nice to see that we are thinking of that. But the Post Falls proposals for our future is going to be at anywhere from 60 to 65,000 people in Post Falls from the years of 2025 to 2030. Great. I'm hoping that I won't be able to get out too much to deal with the traffic. I watched progress take place without any input to the council in our city, and much to my dismay, I lost my accountability. Here in Post Falls, we chose to come here because of the open space, the wonderful neighbors, the fact that people wave. Has been a great place. Over the crowded schools and the strain on public services from whence we came, I do have concerns, and that is the annexation narrative on page 4 for fire protection. Quoted, it says that this property is located on the Kootenai County Fire District. The development of this property will include installation of water mains, water services, fire hydrants, as required by the city of Post Falls and the Fire Protection District. There are 3 fire stations locally within this annex area, along with the Post Falls area, Meadows area, and they're within a reasonable distance. Station 1 is on North Idaho with a 24-hour response station. Station 2 is a limited response station on East Celtis. And Station 3, again closest to us, is a 24-hour response station. All in all, Post Falls, I'm sure you understand and know, has 8 fire stations. And the Kootenai County Fire Rescue has apparently 2 full-time ambulances through my research, and that disturbs me a little bit. Per the Kootenai County EMS system, these ambulances are not just for our area, I think they're shared amongst the crew. And in a recent published statement from the Kootenai Fire and Rescue site, they had a Keep Kids Alive drive on May 1st, which I'm sure you all know of. It's a commitment that they had created to practice safe driving behaviors for all the kids in the neighborhood, and they carry behaviors towards each time we get behind the wheel. Again, with our crowded areas that we're talking about on the Grange, Chase, Pole Line, Fisher area. On average, and these are statistics that came directly from the Kootenai County Fire Rescue site, on average, over 900 deaths occur each day from speeding vehicles, and this is from the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration. 500 children under the age of 14 are killed each year while walking in what should have been their safe haven, their neighborhoods. Each year, over 5,000 sons, daughters, mothers, and fathers are killed while walking in neighborhoods or crossing streets, again, from the NHTSA. 2.5 million people are injured each year in motor vehicle accidents. The death rate on residential streets is over twice that of highways, measured per miles per the NHTSA. Speeding triples the odds of crashing through the AAA Foundation and traffic safety reports, and a pedestrian is hit in a 35-mile-an-hour zone is 3 times more likely to die than one hit in the 25-mile zone, again, from the NHTSA. Along with that safety for those children, in 20 houses that I counted on Grange Avenue, the first 20 houses had 11 children. Those children walk to the bus stop, they ride their bikes, they walk their dogs, moms push their babies. And I don't believe that the sidewalk access is appropriate for those areas. And when
Mrs.
you
Quinn,
have...
4 minutes are up, so go ahead and
Okay.
wrap up, please.
Quickly, the police protection is, a statement was made that through the increased tax base generated, that the development will be sharing in part of the expenses, the increased tax benefit would happen after all those 200 homes were put into the area, then putting more stress and strain on the current police force that we currently have, and they do a very good job. So the funding should come before that, and who might participate in helping our police department and fire departments take care of things. Thank you for
very
your time,
much.
Chairman.
I absolutely appreciate it. Next up in opposition, Deb Sanders. Saunders. I'll catch it this time. Saunders. Apologize.
Good evening. My name is Deb Saunders. I live at 1216 West Grange Avenue. Mr. Manley, could you go back in your slide presentation to the photo of the sidewalk in the meadows?
After I get done. Sure. That way. Okay, I got it. Have a seat. Take care.
Okay. Well, that is Grange. As you can see, there is obviously sidewalks, gutters. Now, if you'll go to the meadows, this walking path that you see there, and during the Chase Grange annexation, Mr. Manley made the comment and kind of led the council to believe that there was a comprehensive sidewalk. Those trails belong to the meadows. They do not belong to the city. The liability for us as homeowners rises to something we can't even understand. If you open this up and people are using our trails, our liability is huge. So I ask you to consider that when you push this through. The annexation to the south of us, Whiskey Flats, another 200 homes up in Crown Point. No one has even said anything about Crown Point. The city's park that is on the corner of Grange and Howell would be best reached by Howell, not on Grange. But those walking trails, there's no place to walk here except in the road, unless you're on our private trails. The other thing I'd like to talk about is once you approve RS, there's no going back. The gentleman is talking about a 65-plus community, or a 55-plus, sorry, with maybe 65 homes. But if you pass this R1S, there's no going back. There's nothing to hold him to that. That would be best annexed as a PUD if that's actually what he wants to do. So I ask that you consider those things. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Next up in opposition, John Stevens.
Hi, my name is John Stevens. I'm a resident of the Meadows on Staples, and one of my biggest concerns here is the difference between R1S and R1 zoning. I previously came from a home in Coeur d'Alene to where it was zoned like R1 basically, but they said they were going to build upper scale homes in the last phase of the subdivision that I was in. That started with a few homes, and what happens with this possible high density zoning is that they get partway through it. They don't have to adhere to it. Even the gentleman that got up and testified from the engineering firm, from the landowner, said they're not real sure what they're going to do yet. And so they could say they're going to do a 65 thing, and then if that doesn't work for them, they're going to put 5 houses per acre in. The homes in the meadows where we live, that perimeter, the outside, the longest outside measurement of that piece of property are all R1S, 1 acre properties. mean value of those homes are in the $550,000 range. The mean value of 5 houses per acre here are going to be somewhere in the $250,000 range. I can't get proof of this, but I've talked to people. I would have to do like a mock sale or something like that, pay money to do that, and to have an appraisal done on my house and what it would affect to do that. The property I came from in Coeur d'Alene, what had happened is I ended up with one of the bigger, fanciest, expensive homes on the block, but my house was not worth any more than the house next to it that was, you know, an 1,100 square foot cracker box. And I ended up losing on that same house built by that same builder in a different place out in Grouse Meadows. $50,000 I lost on the value of my home just by being where it was at. And I really don't want that to happen where we're going with this here. And before I purchased that house, I was smart. I went down to find out what that lot, vacant lot behind me, what was planned. And they said they didn't have any real plans or annexation. It was part of the county at this point. But it would be consistent to what our zoning is, probably R1S, may not be 1 acre lots, but maybe 2 houses per acre, is so that it would protect our values of our homes. You know, and that's the other thing, by this high density housing, I don't need 1950s RVs parked in backyards with blue tarps over them. You know, that's my view. That's what I got to get away from. That's why I invested where I am, and I pay the dues for HOA fee that protects our community. And I don't see that happening in a high density R1 zoning. Sure, they may start out with a little bit of an HOA, but it'll fall apart because the people that are in these lower income homes are not going to maintain that. And then of course the traffic flow, you know, is just a big thing. And one thing that a few gentlemen said about the Prairie Meadows is that it was 180 homes in there. Actually, was wrong. There's 265 homes in there now that go out Howell to Chase to go southeast into town. That's going to be 265 homes. According to your traffic engineer here, they're going to take the shortest routes. And when they talked about this at the last meeting, he missed that completely. And they're not going to turn on to go up Howell to Fisher. They're going to go up Howell to Grange and on to Chase. It's, you know, an engineered traffic study has to happen. Thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very, very much. Is it Tom Kelly wishes to speak in opposition?
Yeah, Chairman Davis, the City P&Z Board. My name's Tom Kelly. I live on 1852 West Grange Avenue, also president of the Meadows HOA. I guess the question I want the City Council approving the recent Chase grain annexation almost unanimously on just the developer and planning department giving kind of a one-sided justification of approval. My question is, where was the concern for the neighbors, you know, impact and input at that? Okay. Also with the reasoning for the annexation with an R1 zoning instead of staying with the R1S, which has been approved for all the properties surrounding this, north of the railroad between McGuire Road and Chase, and even north of Fisher, the 3 subdivisions, Prairie Meadows, the Meadows, and the Meadow Ridge, with the exception of Janistec Court, which is a R1. But that was developed with larger lots and that, so it kind of conforms a little bit with what is existing surrounding. So which brings to the point of less density of houses and help alleviate a host of aggravated problems, including much increased traffic, which has been stressed here tonight. So in closing, I urge the city to rethink the Chase Grange annexation and propose BOSETH annexation zoned R1 and stay with the existing R1S for the area. Thanks for your consideration tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. And lastly this evening, wishing to speak in opposition is Ed Garrett.
Commission. My name's Ed Garrett, 2145 West Grange Avenue. I'm going to talk a little bit about our school situation, referring mainly to the traffic and safety. Children go to school many different directions from this area. They travel east, south, southwest at the present time. Children travel to school by different means: buses, walk, personal auto, and other types of transportation, even skateboards. They must enter traffic on busy streets and cross railroad tracks. Are we prepared for the safety needs of our children's travel? For example, proper bus stops, crosswalks, safety signals, train crossings, and etc. At this time, there are no left-hand turns on Chase or a or a double lane at the railroad crossing. There will be buses in and out of this area at all times of the day, with extra buses at different times. In the future, there will be additional schools in this area. 60 acres has been purchased for a new high school at the corner of McGuire and Prairie. We feel that these issues have to be addressed before additional housing is approved. Could I ask a question?
Or are we?
This really isn't the forum for asking questions. If you have a question for staff, we can catch you after the hearing and answer them for you there.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Okay. No more individuals wishing to speak, correct? We've got them all turned in. That being said, we will turn over to the applicant for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to start off by saying thank you for all the neighbors and concerned citizens coming tonight to voice their concerns. And I tried to write most of the comments down that I'd like to address. So for the record again, Steve Circle. And with the last name of geometric figure, if I butcher your name, I got a lifelong pass. So we'll start off with Mr. Wilhelm. Robert, he had stated, and he actually provided a map here that isn't formally been presented to you for consideration, and I don't even believe my logo is on that. As I stated before, we don't have anything presented to you because the process is, tonight we're here for consideration for annexation, not for a subdivision, not for 98 lots, not for 15 lots. We're here for the consideration for annexation. That's why the staff report, in my opinion, is written up this way. They address the traffic. They address the infrastructure support. Can this be supported with the proposed density of that zoning? We are contiguous to R1, and that's what we, of course, are still going to stand by. So again, that map, I don't necessarily want to answer to it because, again, it hasn't been formally submitted for review and approval. It's one of many concepts we've done. Some of them even have a public park, or not necessarily that, but a rec center or something. But we're still working on that. Mr. Thomas lives in the Meadows, and he's concerned about developmental diversity. I understand that. And there is infill, and it is infill, and you guys have known that for years. I still feel that the best use of this land for city densities, for the city to support the public infrastructure we have to build and donate to the city, is not going to be 1 acre lots. It's going to be difficult to do that. 1 acre lots would be a paved road, no curb, gutter, sidewalk, and we'd have to come in through a PUD to propose that. Well, that's not, as just stated, it's not the safest pedestrian route to travel for the new subdivision we're proposing to generate, even in addition to the one that's already there. Accountability, Mr. Quinn had mentioned on that, and I'm all about managed growth. I always have been. As a planning and zoning commissioner with the county, I'm very, very strong on that. I see that this is an act of managed growth, and I could take a look at the existing proposal or the existing lots here, and we could chew that up as far as traffic connectivity that lacks connectivity. There's 167 homes, I think, that was stated on the Prairie Meadows down below that they only have to go up to Howell, and they're either going to go over to McGuire or they're going to come all the way up to Fisher and across. Well, if Grange is connected, well, then those neighbors don't have to have those trips going all the way up to Fisher and come out to Chase. So there's that analysis. City staff engineering can answer any questions as far as why Grange needs to be connected together, but on a traffic connectivity standpoint, with the existing homes that are there now, it does make sense to connect Grange to Chase for a second point of access for safety. Because as previous testimony we just heard, a lot of them either dump out on Fisher at Chase or they come over to McGuire based on where they're going, whether it's an AM trip or a PM trip, coming home or going to work. Mrs. Walker mentioned regarding the WE value, and I feel that John and staff had done a great job evaluating the comprehensive plan. We feel that we are in compliance with that. And there are valid comments, and I don't know if I can really address those because I didn't write that plan. But I feel that with our staff report, and there's several notations in there that I feel strongly about, that we do comply with that. And again, we're here tonight to just consider annexation into the city. Again, it's not about density. It's about, does this make sense to bring this into the city? Is there support for it? And I think we've proven that tonight. Mr. Castor, welcome him here. Concerned about traffic. 15 years ago, the Meadows was approved. Well, 15 years ago, the Meadows was the only thing out there. However, it had to be contiguous with something in order to be annexed into the city as a PUD. And at that time, it probably did make sense to do 1 acre lots. But yet, look at the roadway classification they have. But as the city has grown to those boundaries, then you have a responsibility to think, okay, well, what's the safer route of travel for pedestrians and kids to get to the schools that are existing right now and are going to be coming in the future with the density? That's managed growth. And I think with city-like densities, curb gutter, sidewalk, those kind of developments, as we've done all across the prairie, you see to the southeast, Montrose, you see Whiskey Flats, to the south of us, we're doing that. And I think that's managed growth, and it's doing really well. Kind of go through, a lot of them really spoke a lot about, the density and the traffic, and I guess I'd refer again to engineering. I can't really answer the traffic, but for the traffic transportation model and master plan, Chase is designated to handle those trips, and as Rob testified, we're significantly less below what that road is classified to do. So with our improvements and the improvements to the south, improvements to the north, Chase will be improved with curb gutter sidewalk, allowing for that access for school, the kids to get to the school on a safe pedestrian route. With that, hopefully I covered everything that I wanted to cover and answer any questions you might have of me.
Questions for applicant? Nope. Nope.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, thank you. Sorry.
How do we vote?
Warren?
The way the process is set up, the applicant goes first and presents testimony, and then anybody in favor, neutral, and opposition gets to testify in that order to allow people to hear everything that they might want to object to. Just like in court, the person that goes first, because they didn't have a chance to react to what was said after them, gets a chance to issue rebuttal. There isn't a chance for people who've testified independently to provide rebuttal.
And again, I appreciate everyone's comments. Obviously, those will be taken into account. That being said, any questions for staff before we close this? No questions for staff, then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and open it up for commissioner comments. Ray?
Wow, there's a lot to talk about today. So I guess I'll first talk a little bit about traffic. So there's one person in Post Falls that I consider to be an expert on traffic, and that's Rob Palus. He knows the city traffic, I think, better than anybody else from an engineering standpoint, and I trust his judgment with regards to whether or not there will be adequate capacity in the city's transportation system with a density of this nature. And then there's with regards to what should this property be. I've felt for a long time that 1 acre development for a city is an irresponsible 1 acre lots is irresponsible for a city to move forward from a long-term financial standpoint. And the reason I say that is that it takes the same amount of streets, same amount of sewer line, same amount of water line to serve 1 acre lots as it does to serve 4 units per acre. And now if we use the numbers that the gentleman towards the end of the presentation spoke about with regards to property values, if the mean value of each one of those 1 acre lots is, let's just say, $600,000 per acre, and the annexation, each home is $250,000 per home, and there's 4 to 5 per acre, that's $1.0 to $1.25 million per acre versus $600,000 per acre. It's double the property value, which comes back to the city in taxable revenue that actually pays for the long-term replacement of water mains and sewer mains and street and repaving and doing all that stuff that the city is taxed with doing. And their only method of getting money is property taxes. So if we annex at 1 unit per acre, then it puts the burden on the rest of the city with regards to having to increase taxes, tax rate, just to cover the disproportionate value. And so, seeing that it's R1 to the south, R1 to the east, obviously it's an info pocket, it should be annexed. I think R1 is not just appropriate, but what we should annex it in at.
Okay. Mr. Latham?
I'm next. I have a variety of different comments too. I think like Ray, and that was great. You had some very good comments there. I'm torn on this personally because I like the R1S. I've lived in one and I personally like it. But that doesn't mean that R1 is not appropriate for this either. They're both contiguous, R1 and R1S. What makes R1 problematic, or not problematic, but hard, is that there is a variety of densities. They could be 1/4 acre, 1/3 acre, 1/2 acre, 1 acre. They could be 2 acre. It doesn't, And the market drives that. And so if the houses sell slower and they take longer to sell, and the homes sell quicker on the smaller lots, then that's means something that Post Falls, people are asking for those kind of homes, and people are enjoying those and buying those and living on them. So I see it somewhat that way too. Some of the benefits of any kind of an annexation, and remember that's what we're looking at tonight. I see that as one of the biggest things. Is that annexation? That's a pocket. I drove that road, Chase Road, all 10 years ago every day for many years, and lived in the meadows there. And so that county road was kind of a funny road. People would ask, why is it all beat up and kind of crumbling and narrow? And it's because it wasn't a Post Falls road. It was a county road, but you took the county road to get into Post Falls, to work in Post Falls and go out of it and then go back into it. And that's not really ideal. And that's what we're trying to solve. So annexing is a very, very good thing. So I'm absolutely in favor of that. The Grange connectivity, I mean, that used to be the old four-wheeler trail, and you'd have motorbikes and all kinds of four-wheel drive trucks flying through on a rutted road and hauling right through and dropping mud onto Grange Avenue. So improving that, and the city engineers making that a better connectivity, I think I'm absolutely for that. I can't see any argument against that. And then really the open space, it's a person's piece of property, and so they do have a right to sell it. So I'm a proponent of owners' rights, and annex or making a request for annexation or selling it. Somebody could buy that. HOA could buy it. Somebody could buy it and turn it into an environmentally open green space, and that would be nice too. But it's not being planned for that. So that's for a very long time. That's been a lot of knapweed, and there was some squatter tent sites there for a while, and it wasn't a pristine environmentally flora and fauna habitat that I ever recall, but that was a long time ago, so maybe I'm wrong there. But those are my comments. I'm very for annexing this into the city at this point.
Okay, Nancy?
I think that definitely that it's infill, and so annexation is appropriate. I do believe that there are some traffic issues, and with that, short of a traffic study, I just think that R1S would be a better zoning for it.
Okay. I would like to point out just something that, from a procedural standpoint, just traffic and traffic impact studies are project-related actions. So, for instance, this could be if whatever it was zoned at. If we said R3, and said, hey, apartments should go there. We need a pocket of apartments, which no one's asking for. Again, they could come back with 1 acre lots in R3. There could be a subdivision, but the important thing to note is that traffic studies in the city of Post Falls are project related. So if the applicant comes forward with a subdivision at a certain density that the city staff feels is above and beyond what their own traffic model has accounted for, then that's the kind of thing that the city staff would kick off a traffic study for, specifically for that. And, that's a double-edged sword. It's really important for us to understand that the city of Post Falls is a traffic impact fee city. So for every house, there's a certain fee. Every building, there's a certain fee that the builder pays to mitigate traffic. And if the city asks the developer to do a traffic impact study, and the traffic impact study says there's no impact or there's minimal impact, then technically speaking, the developer is only required to pay for that small little impact versus paying for the actual impact fee. They did a study that said, hey, we have less impact than normal, or what the city says. Because the city just has a blanket impact fee that's pretty much across the board applied to a house. So it's one of those things where I think that having an impact fee, or a traffic impact study for an annexation isn't necessarily something that's appropriate for an annexation, for a density. It's project related, and that's typically where they should be, because they can't guarantee any sort of a density in a traffic study.
Well, I believe this is an annexation, but we're making a recommendation for the zone as well. And I think that's where it comes into play, in
Sure.
my opinion.
Absolutely. I think obviously everyone's concerned about traffic and about density. I was glad to hear that 2017 does appear to have Grange and Spokane streets gated and lit. But again, tonight, we are simply here looking at whether it should be annexed and sending it on to the commission or to the city council for further recommendation. So, obviously not an easy decision. I think everyone in the room understands that growth is inevitable. We could deny this, throw it out, and then in a matter of time have R3 coming back, which would even be worse. So there's a lot of consideration to take with that. With that being said, I'd entertain a motion.
In the case of file A17-03, the BOSETH annexation, I would move to recommend approval of annexation with an R1 zoning, finding that the applicant has met the city and state requirements, and that an R1 zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan in the area.
I'll go ahead and second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Vote. Call for vote.
Hampi,
No.
Latham,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes. That will be moved on to city council again. That will be heard on June 19th. That being said, before we open Dobson Acres Subdivision file number S-17-04, we are going to take a 5-minute recess. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order. We are going to move on to our second public hearing of the evening, and that is Dobson Acres Subdivision, file number S-17-04. We'll go ahead and call that public hearing to order. Mr. Manley to present.
Sorry about this. I got sidetracked here on the PowerPoint. Yes, so Chairman Davis, Commissioners, John Manley, Planning Manager, introducing Dobson Acres Subdivision. The property owner is Joseph Dobson. The applicant rep is Tri-State Consulting Engineering and is present this evening. Requests subdivision approval that meets the merits for an infill neighborhood plan per Post Falls Municipal Code, Title 18A, to create 18 lots for 35 units. Title 18A, that's a smart code zoning district. It's a little bit different than conventional zoning, which you've heard tonight, the R1, R1S type development. It's a smart code, SC3, SC4, SC5 type development. And in that, part of the annexation, it was required that they also meet the merits of the infill neighborhood plan as part of the subdivision approval. So looking at the project location, you see that here in the red hatched box. It's at the northwest corner of Pole Line Avenue and Chase Road. And here's the zoning that I was kind of referring to as part of the intro, the difference between smart code and the conventional zoning. The conventional zoning you see here is more of the yellow and the orange and browns. The smart code has more of a purple, lavender type mix of color spectrum. So you see here in the lighter colors, that's the SC3, the darker purple, that's the SC4 zoning, and the black hatch, that's once again the property boundaries. The property size is about 3.54 acres. The current zoning is Smart Code 4. Comp plan for this area is residential. The proposed density is 9.9 dwelling units per acre. Within the SC4, they go by minimum versus a maximum density. So it's a little bit different. And so in this zoning district, it's 8 dwelling units per acre is the minimum. So they meet that standard with this proposed subdivision. The water for this area is provided by East Green Acres Irrigation District, with sewer being provided by the City of Post Falls.
Hey, John, real
Yeah.
quick, to meet that density, does that mean that all of those lots are required to be duplex or fourplex at a minimum?
Are you speaking to this?
To meet the minimum density?
The minimum density?
At 8, does that mean they couldn't take a fourplex lot and turn it into a single family house?
You could do a variety of uses. You can do a single building too so you can do a lot of single family homes if you could figure out how to get a road layout to work with smaller lots such that they meet the minimum lot width for that zoning district. Or you can have a single structure with a bunch of units in it also and get that. So Smart Code is a form-based code, so it allows for some flexibility in the type of housing that would be provided such that you meet that minimum 8 units. Could be a side yard house, it could be,
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Well, I think in order to get to 9.9, you have to have a certain number of units, right? 9.9, or 8, you have to have a certain number of units over the whole thing. So some of those are going to have to be duplex or triplex.
Well, we'll go to the layout here. So with this current plan, they have 7 rear entry. They're proposing fronting a passage. They are proposing this alley to access those. The fire department has worked with them a bit on that, and that's why you see a 20-foot wide alley. You have some, I believe, lots 3 through 8 are proposed duplex type housing lots, with lots 2, 1, and 9 being potential fourplexes. And so with lots 1 and 2 at this location being duplexes as well, with these all being single-family homes. So there's that mix that Smart Code allows for within the SC4.
Okay.
You just took the number of units to 35 divided by the acreage and got the 9.9.
Okay.
So looking at the subdivision review criteria, this is the criteria that you would compare and review subdivisions against. So for an approval of a subdivision, they would need to meet these elements. So on the first one, the definitive provision had been made for a water supply system that is adequate in terms of quantity and quality for the type of subdivision proposed. East Green Acres will be providing this service. The second one, adequate provisions have been made for public sewage systems and that the existing municipal system can accommodate the proposed sewer flows. What you see here is the existing where sewer is located. It's currently a bit to the north. There is a subdivision that's going to be going in potentially at this location, the Northern Plains Second Edition, and they'll be providing sewer to this through easements. So there is sewer available as part of this subdivision. The proposed streets are consistent with the transportation elements of the comprehensive plan. Engineering Division has commented that the layout would not have a negative impact on the local transportation system. The other is that all areas of the proposed subdivision which may involve soil or topographical conditions presenting hazards have been identified, and that the proposed uses of these areas are compatible with such conditions. There are no soil or topographical conditions that would be presenting a hazard. And that this area of the proposed subdivision is zoned for the proposed use and conforms with the other requirements found in the code. So as you see in the staff report, you can see how this proposed subdivision meets the merits of Title 18A and Title 17, the subdivision. And looking at the last review criteria for a subdivision, as the developer has made adequate plans to ensure that the community will bear no fair share of its costs. This is the impact fee portion of this. So with each unit, or either multifamily, a fourplex, or each single family, they pay their impact fees. Impact fees go towards parks, public safety, and streets. And so it would go into the pool to develop either additional parks or for regional traffic type impacts. And looking at the SMART code, the infill neighborhood plan, all the elements for an infill neighborhood plan are very similar to the same, they're exactly the same as a subdivision. The one thing that's different is they need to look at head shed analysis. This is in Exhibit A7. This was stolen from the, actually not stolen, but it was brought in from the Micah Acres annexation when this originally came in. And so in this, you have two qualifying PED sheds for SMART code. And one is the one in Montrose. There's a park in this area, and it's a quarter-mile PED shed. You just find a location, you do a quarter-mile radius, and then that's basically the area which is reasonable for a resident to walk to. And then the second one, there's this open green to the east. So being down in this area, there'd be two available PED sheds. So it meets the merits of an infill neighborhood plan as well.
John, with regards to that, is there any required civic space for this subdivision?
No, there wouldn't be, because they meet the, there isn't.
Okay.
So, in kind of an overview, to recap things, the lots meet and exceed the minimum lot dimensional standards. The 9.9 dwelling units meets the minimum requirements for Title 18. It's intended development to be constructed in a single phase, and it would be infill development because you're surrounded by developed areas. It's raw land surrounded by development. It's just not county property being, like in annexation, you're looking at county property that's infill. This would be property in the city, still considered infill. This property does, if it was to be developed, would provide critical improvements at the northwest corner of the Chase and Grange. Sorry, that's Chase and Pole Line. It's a carryover. And it's to be attained through this development. So there's currently, on the southwest corner, a approved subdivision at this location. So with this, we'll go back to the proposed layout. You see the improvements going along Chase and then on the north side of Pole Line. So there'll be senders and receivers on all four corners. So that'll help with pedestrian safety and vehicular movements. In conversations with the Kootenai County Fire, I don't know if this was intended or not, but there is no condition 1, so we're able to replace it with a suggested additional condition with Kootenai County Fire, and that's when you're looking at that alley right here, they want to have no parking signs to be added on that, and that. So this would be the suggested language. Shall be no parking signage posted in the proposed alleyway to be reviewed and approved by the fire marshal prior to issuance of an alley access certificate of occupancy. So I want to make sure that the signage meets fire standards and doesn't allow for parking. The other one is that the alley accessed housing units must provide points of entry from the north and south being where the passageway is at, and also be addressed on the north and south points of entry. And the reason for the redundancy a little bit there is because if by chance they provided an east or a west point of entry, that we were very clear that it was in both cases a north and south scenario. So they'd be part of the motion for additional conditions. We didn't receive any other comments from other agencies, and I'd stand for any questions you have for me at this time.
I do have a couple.
Yeah.
I didn't see lot dimensions on there. See the square footages, but not dimensions.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, the minimum lot width for an SC4 is 24 feet.
24, are those 24 feet wide?
Yeah, they're all larger than 24 feet.
They're all larger than 24?
For minimum width, yes.
For minimum width?
They're 24 feet or larger, yes.
Okay. And the maximum was 96 feet wide?
This is true.
And does lot one meet that?
I might let the applicant answer that question.
And
I was going to say, ask your other question before we pull them up.
And let's see. And is that alley or passageway going to be privately owned or publicly owned?
That would be privately owned and maintained.
So it'd be privately owned. It'd be a homeowner association.
Correct.
Okay. That's my only two questions.
Mark, Nancy, questions?
No questions.
Nope. Okay. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Member of the Commission again. Steve Circle for the record, Tri-State Consulting Engineers. I'm here on behalf of my client, Mr. Joe Dobson. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it here this evening. He had to travel south to Boise for a funeral. He has to attend tomorrow. So, but otherwise he would have been here. Read through the staff report. This, I believe, is a very well thought out process. You guys selected the zoning a few years ago with the parcels to the north. We've laid this out, I think, the best we could with the land. And we've got 18 lots. It shows where we got fourplexes to meet that density, the minimum density for the units. Maybe just go right to Ray's question. That's a really good question. I have to probably get back to you on that, Lot 1, but as you can see, that gas main there, that lovely Williams gas main, really kind of chokes those lots, because you can't necessarily develop in that, even though it's still a part of the lot. But I don't have the answer to that, unfortunately, of what that lot is, but certainly if we have to make a modification, we will, to meet that requirement. We're just above the minimum, which is 8 units, dwelling units to the acre per the zoning. And we're excited to get moving on this. Same development group is developing to the south, which is Columbia Estates. You approved a couple months ago. And plans are in for review and approval with the city now, and we hope to be moving dirt soon, and this is one to follow shortly after that. With these two developments, I can reiterate something that Rob did mention earlier, that Chase and Poline is going to have a roundabout there, and that's in your transportation master plan. So that may be something that comes about with this too. So that's obviously going to improve that area, improve that intersection for traffic flow and safety going, passing through there with the trips that we'll be generating. With that, I'd stand for any questions you may have.
I do have a question. So, and staff was saying that there's going to be an association that maintains, is it just the alley or is it the streets?
Well, it'll be the, I believe it's also going to be the landscaping area will be required to be maintained by the HOA.
Green space, but not that main road that comes in, that's a city road?
Yeah, that's
okay.
right, that'll be city road.
Okay.
With the stormwater treatment and all the facilities within that too.
Okay.
Steve, I just have one question. Those narrow lots, I'm having trouble with those too. They are so narrow that, 3 foot is a setback for fire code, or 0 with a firewall. And I think Smart Code allows a 0 and a 3 maybe, or a 3 and a 3 for side setbacks. But they're so narrow, I don't know if you can really get much of a...
The product we're thinking about there is similar to the kind of the row housing product that you see right on Government Way across from the...
So that's SC
cemetery.
4 would allow a 0 lot line.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And that's what we
that
think
answers that.
will work really well there.
It's more of a John question, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So that's what we have, the hammerhead there. We met with the fire department and worked that out, and then got some extra additional parking spaces there too.
Yeah.
So.
And my only other comment is, fourplexes trigger fire sprinklers typically, so as long as the fire marshal is aware of that, or the city engineers as far as water flow capability, but.
When I presented this last week, Tuesday actually, to the irrigation district, we discussed that, and they have plenty of capacity. They got a big line in Chase.
Oh, okay.
Like a 21-inch line, so we're good with that, and we already thought about that too. So,
Steve, I do have one quick question.
Yeah.
I'll just preface it with a little statement that I live on a privately owned and maintained street in an HOA, and it's 20 years old right now, and it's falling apart. And a little 33 lot HOA doesn't have a whole lot of money because it was poorly set up for long-term maintenance and replacement of our street. And I have a concern for long-term replacement maintenance of primary access to single-family lots being privately owned and maintained, and the city having to go through what we attempted to do years ago, which was ask the city to take it over. Would you be opposed, or would your client be opposed to an additional condition that would require the homeowners association to provide the city with a financial plan that guarantees future capability of long-term maintenance?
I don't believe they would have any issues with that, and that's a really good question. I would say that, of course, it's a moot point really, because you're on single family, I'm assuming, with your 33 lots in your HOA. And this would be single family as well, so it's not like multifamily, a lot of trips as a multifamily, which will be the interior loop road. But yeah, I don't think, if you put it as a condition, I don't think Mr. Dobson would have any issues with that.
It's got a finite lifespan, so sometimes it's got to get replaced.
Right, and you can understand why, and I know you can appreciate why we had to have that coming through there, because we got to be able to access that manhole back there that's coming from the north, the sewer main. So he's either poking access up in the knuckle there, or come in on the backside, and we had to get to our density, so that's just kind of how the lot's laid out, is to come in that way, and we thought that was pretty creative there, so.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Public comment, any in favor?
No.
Any neutral?
No.
Any opposed?
Nope.
Okay,
the
that
one
being
with the
said, no
dimensions.
need for, yes.
If I could put this plan over the overhead, it does have the dimensions.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Tavis. Yeah, this, what you saw up there, that's what we got with the original submittal. We did request an additional one.
So that's got the lot dimensions of. Oh, oh.
Sorry.
Hey now.
Focus. That's a whole up in there. It's 80.
So it's 104 on the back. Guess we haven't closed the public hearing yet.
No, we have not.
Can't imagine it would, to go to 96 would, on the south side, just trim it out and add some more open space would hurt anybody.
Well, we could take the gas main easement and turn it into a tract. That would shorten it up.
Yeah, I mean, that would
Can't
meet
use it
the
anyways.
code, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's all, I don't,
And we'd be
no
fine
other
doing
reason
that if
than
that
just
was
to meet the
condition.
code.
It needs to meet all of the code requirements, so there
So-
would need to be some way to bring that lot within that minimum and maximum square footage.
So, okay, so it would have to meet, so would that be a condition of approval, or would we,
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate, that they meet that requirement.
okay. And so procedurally, do we need to, would it be more appropriate to continue?
I think
They
you can
can
handle it with
redo
a
it-
condition, and
redo it
then
as a
from there,
condition.
we will work with them and make sure it meets that dimensional requirement before it
Okay.
gets to council for their new business item.
Okay.
Fair enough. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and close S-17-04 public hearing and open it up for comment. Nancy?
I certainly am not as familiar with smart code, so I'm getting a little education here. But other than, I guess, the additional condition, it seems to work. And I'm not opposed to it.
Mr. Latham?
Yep, I don't have any questions. I think those questions I had were answered, so no problems.
Ray?
Well, truth be told, I'm not a huge fan of the way it ended up playing out. I was kind of hoping there would be apartments or something. But that said, my opinion on how it looks and how pretty it is doesn't matter. And as long as it meets the code, that's what matters to me. So I think we can get there with some conditions. I just think that from a private private access standpoint for single-family homes or whatever, that there needs to be some sort of a vehicle that when the developer turns it over, that there's a plan for HOA dues that ensures that there's long-term financial stability, so that they don't end up with basically a defunct HOA that has 7 or 10 or 15 lots or whatever it is, paying into it and can't handle a one-time repaving fee or repaving assessment later on. So that's really my only thought.
Okay. Okay, that being said, entertain a motion.
In the case of S17-04 Dobson Acres subdivision. I would move to approve the subdivision with the following, adopting the conditions in the staff report, the conditions, proposed conditions presented by staff during the presentation, which were, I believe, number 1 and 13. Adding a condition that prior to going in front of City Council, the applicant shall present a revised drawing showing 24 feet minimum width and 96-foot maximum width on the lots, and adding a further condition that states that the HOA shall be set up and required to have a financial plan for long-term maintenance and replacement of any privately owned infrastructure, inclusive of pavement, landscaping, etc.
Okay.
Good.
Good motion.
That was good.
I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Call for vote.
Latham,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Hampi,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes. Okay, final public hearing this evening, Greensferry Grove First Edition file number S-17-05. Go ahead and open that up. Staff report.
Good evening, Commission members. Chairman Davis. Tavis Schmidt, Associate Planner with the City of Post Falls. I'm going to be presenting the Greensferry Grove First Edition, case file S-17-02. The applicant being Lake City Engineering. The owner is Big Creek Land Company, LLC. The requested action this evening is the Planning and Zoning Commission is being asked to review the subdivision request and make a recommendation of approval to City Council along with appropriate conditions if necessary. The project is located at the southeast corner of Greensferry Road and 16th Avenue, as indicated in the red crosshatching.
What's the actual?
The address of the site is 2444 East 16th Avenue. It's approximately 4.2 acres. Currently, there's a single-family residence on the site. Physical characteristics, there's no significant topology or vegetation. Water is to be provided by the Ross Point Water District and sewer by the City of Post Falls. The applicant is proposing 18 single-family residential lots with an average lot size of 7,665 square feet, and that works out to be a density of about 4.3 units per acre. The R1 zoning allows up to 5. They are proposing some new internal streets, some of which are the continuation of Pumice Avenue and Fordham Street, and then there's going to be Shepherd Court, which will be a new one there. The Fordham Street will access to the north on 16th Avenue. This shows the zoning. It's in an area that is predominantly R1, as identified by the yellow. And across Greensferry, we do have the county infill, county pocket in this area there. This is the proposed subdivision plan. So we've got Pumice Avenue coming from the south to the north. We've got Shepherd Court going east-west, and then Fordham Street connecting up to 16th Avenue. Staff reviewed this subdivision proposal with the comprehensive plan and found that it meets the policies and goals of the Post Falls Comprehensive Plan. Public Services Department staff, we recommend further conditions. The lots, we have some lots I'll show on the next slide here, but the lots, 2 lots are flag lots, and they don't meet the minimum of a 24 feet there to accommodate a 14-foot minimum driveway with 5 feet on either side, so 10 feet of total for the driveway setbacks. So that's how we get to that 14 feet minimum. Identified in red here, the red circles, so these are the flag lots right here. This one is about 21 feet, excuse me, on the radius right here, and then this one is about 20 feet on a radius right there. And so staff's just recommending additional conditions, just expanding those a little bit there. They will have to work some layout with the adjacent lots. Like this lot right here is just 1 square foot over the minimum lot size. So they'll have to work with that. So we're just recommending that before we go to city council that we adjust the layout here to accommodate the driveway widths with the flag lots. Staff reviewed this in the Post Falls Municipal Code under Title 17. Number 1 is that there's water system will be adequate in quality and quantity. Ross Point Water District is the utility provider for that one. Number 2 is regarding the public sewage system. And that it can accommodate the proposed sewer flows. The City of Post Falls has adequate capacity, and the proposed layout is adequate. The existing home will connect to the sewer system at time of development. This is an aerial photo. The subject property is outlined in red and just showing where the sewer system currently exists. There's one here on Pumice Avenue that will connect to the north there. And then there are the sewer ends over here in 16th Avenue. The third municipal code policy is that proposed streets are consistent with the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. The roadway alignment and cross sections are appropriate. And there will be conditions that no subdivisions will have direct access to Greensferry Road and or 16th Avenue. All areas of the proposed subdivision which could have any topography or soil conditions presenting hazards would be identified and are compatible, and no soil or topographical conditions have been identified as presenting any hazards. 5, area is zoned appropriately and the use conforms to other requirements found in the code. The property is zoned R1 single-family residential and the proposed use is single-family residential. And the lots must meet and exceed the minimum lot dimensional standards. I'm just referring to the 2 lots that need a little bit of working there. Number 6 is that the developers made adequate plans to ensure that the community bears no more than its fair share of costs by paying fees, and we accomplished that through annexation and impact fees, and those are assessed on the building permit and paid upon building permit issuance. Kootenai Fire commented, and they approve as presented. I'll stand for any comments or questions at this time.
Questions?
Does condition number 1 that's in the staff report, does that cover then those 2 lots that you were talking about? It just corrections and additions, if any, to the subdivision requested by staff and or the Planning and Zoning Commission should be completed by the applicant and reviewed by staff prior to approval by the City Council. So that's covered, that would cover those 2 lots that have to have the change made?
Yes.
Number 1,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, it
Okay.
would. And we just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay.
The question was asked prior to the hearing about those lots, and I just wanted to address it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Thank you, Tavis.
Thank you.
Applicant.
Hi, my name is Cliff Mort. I reside at 6812 East Maplewood, Post Falls. We've been developing properties a long time in the city of Post Falls and Kootenai County, and this one actually, I think, kind of speaks for itself. Tap spoke on it very well, and staff, I think, gave a good presentation on it. It's kind of an extension of a property that we've developed to the north there, Greensferry Grove, and on the other side of 16th Street. And this kind of just infills between that and what Mr. Olson of Viking Construction did to the south. And I think the only things, as staff mentioned, you know, a few little lot dimensions might need to be tweaked, and we're not in opposition to that. It's real difficult when you have these little infill pieces to make them work, and what you might see is, you know, why we wouldn't just tear down a house like that. What happens a lot of times is you have these families that have lived here for a long time, or it's second, third generation homes, and you know, they have 5 acres, and you know, they see development around them, and somebody tells them it's worth something, you know, maybe more than it is, and so ultimately you try to make it work, and end up paying more than you probably should for it. So you have to utilize every possible economic part in the equation to make it economically feasible. And so that's what we're trying to do here. So the little flag lot on the corner is the existing house out on the corner of 16th and Greensferry. So that's why that's a little bit odd shaped. And so we'll have to kind of work with staff on the 2 adjoining lots and make that work. And then same with the other flag lot in the corner, just kind of making everything work and still fit within the zoning requirements. So that's really it. So I would appreciate your approval on this, and stand for any questions that you might have.
So there's an existing house in the one corner, and you're just leaving it there?
Yes, it'll be remodeled, real similar to the one we did to the north. We went in, left the particular house that was there in that phase of Greensferry, and then remodeled the exterior so it fits into the neighborhood, and actually re-landscaped it and re-fenced it and all of those things. So it'll be a house that you know, will fit into the neighborhood.
Has some continuity with the rest of it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No. No more. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Public comment?
None.
Any in favor?
None.
Neutral, opposed? Okay. Then no need for rebuttal. Any other questions for staff? Nope. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close things out. Any discussion?
I think it makes sense. I don't have any issues with it.
Yeah, it's a good layout.
Yeah, it's a very creative way to make use of connecting the streets. So it's tough. Infill's really tough, and I'm glad someone's doing it. So it's great, and I support it with staff recommendations for the amended conditions.
Okay. That being said, someone wants to make a motion. Anyone?
Okay. I will. I move to approve Greensferry Grove First Edition Subdivision File Number S17-05, adopting the findings and conclusions and conditions 1 through 11 contained in the staff report. Oh, did I
think?
Was that the wrong?
That's correct. Would you like to amend any of those based on this staff presentation?
No, we didn't need to amend any of those.
Okay, I thought, didn't you have an added condition in there? No?
Number 1 covered it.
Number 1 covered, okay, number 1 covered it, so
Yeah.
we're good. Okay.
We're good? Okay. Looking for a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion is made and seconded. Call for vote.
Kimball,
Yes?
Hamby,
Yes.
Latham,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes. Okay, so moved. Be the end of public hearings for this evening. Take us to item number 11, new business, Foxtail, final PUD and street naming and address, file PF-17-01.
Good evening, Commissioners. Commissioner Davis, Tavis Schmidt, Associate Planner, City of Post Falls. I'm presenting Foxtail Final PUD, case file PF-17-01. The owner applicant for this project is Lakeside Capital LLC, and the requested action this evening is the Planning and Zoning Commission being asked to review and approve the final PUD request, including appropriate conditions if necessary. The project is located directly north of the existing Foxtail subdivision. It is on the east side of Highway 41 and north of Early Dawn Avenue. It's approximately 41.2 acres. Currently, it's vacant. Water is to be provided by Ross Point Water District and sewer provided by the City of Post Falls. They're proposing 131 single-family lots, and there is a block phasing plan. It works out to be a density of approximately 3.18 units per acre. They're going to be extending existing streets, so Finicus Road on the east side will go north and connect to Hope at the northeast corner of the project. Hope Avenue will be on the north side of the project, and it runs east-west, and it'll run to the eastern limits of the project. And Zorro Street will be on the west side of the project, running north-south and connect to Hope Avenue at the northwest corner of the project. They're proposing new internal streets, and the street naming will be approved and verified prior to platting. The proposed lot layout and street plan is consistent with the approved minor amendment to the PUD that was just recently done. And that was just reconfiguring some of the road layouts and some of the lot dimensions. Nothing big, that's why it was deemed to be a minor amendment. This is the final PUD plan. So we've got Finicus Road on the eastern limits of the project, running north-south, connecting to Hope, that's on the north side of the project. And then we've got Zorro Street is on the western boundary. Early Dawn is existing and on the southern boundary of this here. The dashed lines are just delineating the block phasing plan. And so we've got blocks 1, 2, and 3 here. And so they're going to develop them concurrently, but block 1 first, then block 2, and block 3. Staff reviewed this under Title 18, the final PUD, and found the final PUD can exist as an independent unit. Individual phases conform to the overall density and use considerations as approved in the preliminary PUD. And this overall final PUD is independent, stands on its own, and the block plan, with each block plan, they can stand on its own. Number 2, any exception from standard district requirements is warranted by merits of design and amenities incorporated in the final development plan and in accordance with the approved preliminary PUD. This final PUD is in accordance with the approved preliminary PUD, including the minor amendment. Number 3, the existing and proposed utility services are adequate for the uses proposed, and all utilities have been stated to be adequate for the proposed development. Any comments or questions at this time?
No comments, no questions?
Nope.
Nope.
All right.
Are they all named Public Street?
Currently, yes.
A little confusing.
I live on North Public Street. Which one?
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, with new business, I guess we'd just be looking for a motion, correct?
Oh, discussion?
Well, let's open it for discussion.
Let's do it. Yeah, it makes sense and meets the requirements of the PUD. So I'm glad to see that that's finally really starting to take off again.
Mm-hmm.
So 40 acres is a lot. Glad they're going.
Yeah,
absolutely. Mark, anything?
It looks good. I don't have any comments.
Nancy?
No, I'm in agreement.
No, I think it does absolutely look fantastic. So sounds like everybody's on the same page. We'd be looking for a motion then.
I will do this time. It's my turn, right? I move to approve the Foxtail final PUD, which is PF-17-01, as presented.
Okay. With proposed conditions? Is that with the proposed conditions?
That is correct, with the proposed conditions, yes.
Second?
Okay, moving to second and call for vote.
Hampi,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Latham,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes. Okay, item number 12, staff comments.
No additional comments.
No additional comments? Any commission comments?
Just thanks to staff for putting together great staff reports on a long public hearing, and I'm glad you finally got some help.
Yes, thanks.
Yes, definitely thanks to the staff. Obviously, didn't get to see it on TV, but Tavis, your speed to go get copy in the back, running back and forth. Amazing, amazing. Good time. It is nice to be able to set up here every month and know that we have such great staff that are setting us up. So we greatly appreciate it. I guess if no other comment, then we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Said that really quick.